What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So something really crazy and unpredictable happened over the weekend in the OCG. There was a tournament that was 174 players, which I would say is a relatively good sized tournament. If you translated that to the TCG, that would be an 8-round regional. Although you guys know that a lot of events in the OCG tend to be team based, and this one was as well. That was teams of 3, and I believe that there were 58 teams, but that's still a lot of teams, especially considering at a team event, if like 2 of the players are good and then one guy just kind of sucks and he loses a bunch of matches. I'm not really sure how far your team's gonna actually go, but what actually topped and made it extremely far, I'm talking 3rd place with multiple variants, is I could not even make this up. I actually had to do a quick double take to make sure that I was even looking at the right deck. I'm gonna scroll down a bit, and Mass Heroes ended up getting 2 decks in the top 3, 2 people on this team. Keep in mind that there were only 3 people, so over half the team was like, yo, Mass Heroes is the way to go, and they ended up actually getting 3rd place. Now this is crazy because from what I have heard from people who are like hero enthusiasts, people have said that the deck was not going to translate all that well to, I guess, what people still call link formats. A lot of people have been saying that Mass Heroes or heroes in general need a link monster, but I guess it boils down to Dark Law is still that motherfucking card. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the deck list. It's really interesting because if it was just the same deck, a lot of these team events tend to be just kind of like one person will find a really optimal rogue deck and then everybody will kind of copy it, or they may run a couple card difference. But if you look at the 2 versions, I'm gonna show you guys really quickly before I really jump into like the explanations, they're fairly different. Like one of the versions is 42 cards, the other one is 40 cards. The hand trap layout is different. One version decides to run a bunch of removal like Feather Duster and maxes out on Cosmic Cyclone. The other version doesn't run either card. This version runs kind of like the Call of the Haunteds maxed out, where it's like 6 Call of the Haunteds between back to the front and running 3 copies of Call of the Haunted. The other version doesn't run any of them, but instead runs Soul Charge. And it's really interesting because there is no way, actually I accidentally went to TCG list. There is no way that I thought that heroes were going to do anything in the OCG. Obviously we have to mention the fact that they do have Elemental Hero Stratos unbanned, and the card is actually at 2. It's semi-limited, so that obviously is a big impact. But the thing is, everything else in the hero deck has been gutted in kind of like the weirdest way. So a lot of TCG players might not know this because it's really not that relevant, but Shadow Mist is actually limited in the OCG, and then one of the strangest limits that I've ever seen, Mass Change 2, is actually limited as well. So Konami definitely went after Mass Heroes, and that's why people stopped playing them completely in the OCG. And a lot of people aren't very hot on heroes going into the rule changes of Reigns, because obviously the best version of heroes in the TCG, which was totally heroes, that deck is just completely gone as well. It's not playable. There is no more Norden, and the entire Bahamut Shark play doesn't even work unless you have a bunch of link monsters on the field, or unless you have at least like a link 2. So it just wasn't looking very promising for heroes. So to see them actually fight back and top a very big event, or I don't want to say very big event, but a relatively good size event, is pretty shocking. Now it also tells you a little bit about the OCG format. I mean, oh my god guys, they are just hand trap city. Look how many hand traps are in this build. This dude maxed out on Effect Veiler, Ghost Ash, and Ash Forehead. That is 9 hand traps, so you know you're gonna open with at least one of them, maybe even 2. And I'm thinking that if you can back up Dark Law plus maybe like an Effect Veiler or something else in a format that does not have Regeki, you could probably be in a very solid position. Because think about it like this, right? I think that Dark Law is still very powerful on its own, because if you look at the OCG, where most people's normal summons are going to be committed to cards that search, whether that be Overraptor, whether that be Alistair, you're going to get a card out of their hand. Whether they play Terraforming or they just activate the Diagram or something, your opponent doesn't really have, the way that Yu-Gi-Oh is, like nobody is going to have 6 cards in their opening hand and none of them search. So Dark Law is such a difficult card to play around. It's almost like you have a 5-card hand, because Dark Law is going to hit something out of the hand. Even this version right here, The second version that was kind of different, this version runs Drone and Lockbird in the main. It just doesn't max out on Veilers, but it does max out on the other, you know, big forehead chick cards. Well, this one doesn't have a big forehead, but you guys get what I mean. And what's really cool is the fact that even with Shadow Mist at 1, which I really thought was going to be the death of Heroes ever in the OCG, I was like, well, I guess Heroes will never be played again. It looks like Vision Hero Vion has basically picked up the slack. I mean, this card is a +1 when you summon it, because if you summon it, you just drop your Shadow Mist in the graveyard. Shadow Mist will get you like Stratos, or it can get you Neos Alias or something like that, and then you can go into Dark Law. It's not quite as easy because, you know, you won't be able to just search the mass change like you would with Shadow Mist, but it's still a very fundamentally solid play, especially if you can combine that with or if you can bring Shadow Mist straight out of your deck with the 3 copies of A Hero Lives that both of them play. Now, I actually like this version a little more, the version that maxes out on the Call of the Haunted, because you have to keep in mind Stratos is still a very, very strong card. Not only does it have that MST effect that if you have 6 Call of the Haunted, I mean, hell, you might be able to just Twin Twister your opponent just off of Stratos during the end phase, activate Call of the Haunted, nuke a couple of their back rows, or maybe even their Pendulum Scales or something like that. But he is still a very solid card, especially when you're playing a deck that doesn't have any like great go-to link summons. I mean, having an 1800 monster that replaces itself, that is not once per turn in any of its effects, that can get you any of your other important monsters and has that potential MST effect, like, that's pretty damn powerful. So I am looking at this deck and it gives me a little bit of hope. Now, obviously, I can just go and say that this does not translate to the TCG. I don't think that Heroes will be popular in the TCG or will stand a very good chance until we have Stratos at least at 1, because if you're not basically playing the kind of Totally Heroes build where you're doing Protect the Castle, it's like Dark Law, totally awesome, Bahamut Shark, then I think that Stratos is kind of needed to kind of pick up the slack. You need another good powerful opening, because getting the Dark Law is not guaranteed anymore. I mean, you have Hero Lives and you have other things like 3 copies of Emergency Call, and you have your copies of or your 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army. But if you don't open with any of those, then Stratos is just a kind of good opening +1 card that if it dies, you can probably summon it back from Soul Charge or Call of the Haunted or back to the front or something like that. Really interesting to see that these decks didn't really even try to incorporate links. Yes, they if you notice that both builds, neither one of them have 15 cards in the extra deck. That's because they both decided to run Link Karibo, which I looked into decks, I was like, I guess Effect Veiler is how they're planning to summon it. That's the only thing that I could actually think of. And then I think the other one ran that Magician card, the Link 2 Magician card, which I don't really know how much you're going to actually summon that. So it's really interesting that Heroes said, we're just going to play the old way. We're just going to tune our deck to be, I guess, the most consistent it can be, and to kind of be Hand Trap City and to incorporate a bunch of kaijus. I still think that, like, the true not true Dracos, but the dinosaur deck in all of its variants, like the True King Dinosaur Yangzing, I think it would actually struggle with Dark Law, because if you really think about it, right, first off, you can take pretty much the Yangzings out of the duel completely, because obviously they want to go to the graveyard. And if you really think about it, I mean, yeah, they have a searchable Dogoran, but if you happen to Effect Veiler the copy of Oviraptor, how exactly are they going to kill your Dark Law? I mean, the boss monster, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, is never going to hit the field because they're never going to have a graveyard. And in a format where no one's playing Dark Hole, no one's playing Regeki, because obviously it's not legal. Interrupted Slumber is at 1, so nobody plays that either. Dark Law can hit the field and can just be a juggernaut, especially if you back it up with a Warning or a Solemn Judgment. That Dark Law might live throughout the entire game, and it might be the sole reason that your opponent just can't do anything. Same thing goes for Invoked. If you get a Dark Law against them, they search with Alistair. I mean, they won't ever really have a graveyard, so I don't really know how they're going to make any of their big plays. And even if they do, if you happen to like Solemn Warning the Invocation, the duel is basically over at that point. Alistair is going to die. You're going to take a card from their hand. Invocation gets banished, and duel is basically over at that point. So you guys let me know what you think. Do you think that there is a slim possibility that Heroes could ever see meta play again in the TCG if we got Stratos back? See, Konami, if you're watching this video, this is why Stratos needs to come back. There is a small smidgen of hope for hero players in the TCG based off these OCG events. Anyways, whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Actually, one more thing. This isn't related to the video at all, but I feel like I gotta shout out my homegirl Nami. She came through on the live stream. She showed me some love, and she did an amazing cosplay right here. You can see that she is Winter Cherries. Boys and girls, this is waifu material. This is how you cosplay. Excellent job, Nami. I just wanted to show you the love back. Show this to the community because I'm a big fan of cosplay, especially when girls kind of dress up as like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh cards and whatnot. Not a lot of guys dress up as cards. I don't know why. It'd be awesome if somebody did like a Stratos cosplay or something like that. You see a lot of players, you know, do Pegasus and do Kaiba and do the characters, but you don't actually see them do monsters. But I just wanted to shout her out because she did an excellent job. Shout outs to you, Nami.